Hello, everybody. Welcome in. Who's not watching the Pro Bowl? That'd be me. I watched for 5 or 10 seconds. And I have to say that Pat McAfee, I love him on play-by-play. It's the first time I think he's done play-by-plays, doing the broadcast with Kirk Herbstreit. Hopefully we get to see more of Pat doing that, but hopefully we also get to see him doing play-by-play on a real game, the whole flag football thing. A little less exciting than 49ers Raiders on that field at Allegiant Stadium. The Pro Bowl, not quite as captivating to me. So anyway, to give you an actual football discussion on a Sunday without actual football, because last Sunday, the NFC Championship game was happening at this time. Well, we have to make sure that you continue getting your fix. We're going to do our first look at the 49ers 2023 depth chart. Now, this was the 70-man roster last week before the season ended for the 49ers. And technically, a lot of the players on this roster are still on the team because their contracts will head up until the end of this league year, which is in early March. But for all intents and purposes, we are turning the page to the 2023 league year. And in that 2023 league year, look at the difference right here. This is the 49ers depth chart. So you went from this 70 rostered players, actually even more because you had players on injured reserve. So I'd say about 90 rostered players to this. 49ers currently have 45 rostered players. So they have a lot of filling out of the roster to do. They have to build what you see in front of you. I'm going to copy and paste this sheet so you have a chance to follow along with me, not just on the screen, but it's also in the description. But go ahead and go into the chat section if you're live, description if you're watching a little bit later, and you could follow along as we take a look at this 49ers roster. So there it is in the chat section. Go ahead and take a look. Now, other exciting news. You could see the Frank Gore jersey behind me. It's not up on the wall yet. This is going to be the off-season base. We're getting the studio set up. Margot and I are literally getting the studio set up right now. Hopefully within the course of the week, it's done. So you're going to have a Gore jersey. You're going to have another surprise jersey in the background. Better lighting. I'm not going to be sitting in right now I'm in a living room / kitchen area. Cool background. You like the cow print on the chairs, but we need to get the jerseys up on the wall. But there's always a jersey in the background. It's not going to be 17 this time. You still don't know what the back of 17 says because the 49ers didn't win the Super Bowl. 17 jerseys in California right now. I'm in Nashville as we speak. Those of you who were watching the live last night as I was walking through the airport and I told you needed to guess what airport it was, that was the Dallas airport. I don't think anybody guessed that right. That was DFW, Dallas, Fort Worth. I flew Fresno, Dallas, Nashville here. We have the internet. It's fast. We have the jersey. There are more jerseys that will be framed and up on the wall, but the studio has to get set up. And here we go. So first look at the 49ers 2023 depth chart. We're going to go position by position. As you can tell, those of you just joining, it's a little bit sparse. This was the 2022 depth chart. See a lot more color coding, a lot more names, practice squad and all that. Well, we have now reverted back into 90-man mode. 90-man mode means that it is the off season and it is much emptier because the 49ers still have many signings to do. Now, I also have a salary cap sheet to go with this. I'm not going to go into the salary cap sheet today because that's going to be a separate show. How does the 90-man roster fit under the cap? But the 49ers are obviously going to have to keep that in mind as they build this roster. So let's do this position by position. Starting with quarterback. Brock Purdy hasn't had surgery yet. It hasn't been reported when he's going to have surgery. They're likely waiting for the swelling to go down. It's been exactly a week at this point, and only a week since Brock Purdy tore his UCL. It is common for these things to take a little bit more than a week before a player goes under the knife. The last we heard, the Brock Purdy will likely be opting for the internal brace technique to repair his torn UCL, which means that he's not going to get Tommy John surgery, which means that the recovery time should be about 6 months for Brock Purdy. So assuming that he gets his surgery here in the coming days, 6 months should have him ready right around the start of training camp because he would be able to start throwing after about 3 months. So Quarterback position. I could zoom in a little bit on this. Get a little bit closer so everybody can see. Looks like a lot of you are following along uh, yourselves. Here's QB. Oops, don't mean to do that. Don't mean to edit my spreadsheet while we're at this. QB is this top row right here. 49ers only have 2 spots taken. We expect them to go through this offseason with at least 3 QBs, probably 4, given what's been going on recently health-wise at the position. But as you can see that I have Brock Purdy shaded in pink. Trey Lance I have as the starter because for all intents and purposes, that's what's going to happen this offseason. Brock Purdy's not going to be available at all these practices. The people who saw this spreadsheet when it came out 2 days ago said, David, what the hell? I think actually I released it yesterday. So yesterday, what the hell? Purdy, if he was healthy, would be above Trey Lance. And to that I said, well, Purdy's not healthy, so he's not above Trey Lance right now. This offseason is going to be a fantastic opportunity for Trey Lance to go through the reps to reestablish himself as the number 1 guy. Purdy's going to have plenty of time if he recovers along the 6-month timeline to reestablish himself in training camp. But we live in the now on this channel. And in the now, Trey Lance is projected to be the 49ers' only healthy quarterback in this offseason program. Now, Lance himself isn't even cleared yet. He said this past week that it'd be 3 to 4 weeks. So by the end of this month, Trey Lance expects to be 100% cleared, and that's going to be big for the 49ers at the quarterback position. But I'm going to go through this in the salary cap sheet. Trey Lance's cap hit this year is about $9.1 million. Brock Purdy's is about $800,000. So the 49ers between these two have a QB room that is costing them only about $10 million on the cap this season. $10 million for the QB position. Meanwhile, we're going to talk more about this in the cap video. You go to the running back room right here. These guys combined over $21 million. So QB only $10 million combined. Running back, $21 million. The room is unchanged and I understand that I disappeared there for a second. Did not mean to do that. The running back room is unchanged and loaded. That was my fault. You guys know how I X out of the screen. I did it a ton of times in Philadelphia last week after the NFC title game. Well, for some reason, slippery fingers here using the trackpad. And again, I screwed it up. So anyway, I have to reopen the depth chart for you. Going to do that very quickly. Window open. There you go. Running back position highlighted again, and I'm going to put the text title up. Oh, good. It's already up there. Unchanged and loaded. So 49ers have McCaffrey. His cap hit up to $12 million this year. Elijah Mitchell, Jordan Mason, Ty Davis-Price, and Kyle Juszczyk, who I believe scored a touchdown in the flag football game and then shot put at the ball into the crowd. Good for Kyle. I'm still not going to watch the Pro Bowl. Congratulations to him and the 49ers who are at the game. That now includes Christian McCaffrey, who made it as an alternate over Miles Sanders. He should have been picked over Miles Sanders to begin with. Another reason not to really pay too much attention to the Pro Bowl because that was absolutely crazy. But not much to say about the running back position outside of the fact that Elijah Mitchell's got to stay healthier next year. 49ers really, really could have used him in the NFC Championship game. Obviously, he wasn't available. What a season for Jordan Mason. I mean, Jordan Mason established himself as a true power option for the 49ers. He's still under a rookie deal. And Ty Davis-Price, I mean, as promising as he might have been on a few runs here and there, he wasn't better than Jordan Mason. He wasn't better than Elijah Mitchell. And he certainly wasn't better than Christian McCaffrey. You could see that Trey Sermon would have had no opportunity on this football team. Trey Sermon of the Philadelphia Eagles, who obviously didn't play against the 49ers this past week. So that running back position looking nice for the 49ers. Let's move on to the receivers. And, you know, I said receivers unchanged and loaded. How about, I said running backs unchanged and loaded. How about wide receivers unchanged and loaded? So they've lost a couple practice squad guys like Willie Snead IV. Tajay Sharp no longer on the team. They didn't grant him a reserve future contract. So what you have right here is Ayuk, Samuel, Juwan Jennings, not officially on the team past March right now, but Juwan Jennings is what we call an exclusive rights free agent. And an exclusive rights free agent, that's even more restricted than a restricted free agent. It means that Juwan Jennings can only negotiate with the 49ers and nobody else. Restricted free agents, another team can negotiate with them, and the 49ers have the opportunity to match their contract offers. But Juwan Jennings is in a position where he can negotiate only with the 49ers. So for all intents and purposes, he will be back with the 49ers next season. However, since he has not yet formally signed a contract for next season, I have him listed there, highlighted in yellow, which means the 49ers must tender Juwan Jennings an exclusive rights free agent deal, and Jennings must sign it. But you have Ayuk, Samuel, Jennings, Ray McLeod, and Danny Gray. The 49ers signed 2 players to reserve future contracts from the practice squad last season. That means they're going to be with the team through at least this offseason, or at least for a period of this offseason. That's Tay Martin and Daz Newsome. They obviously can still add more wideouts to make it through the course of the offseason, but as of right now, the 49ers have 7 on the team. All 7 were with them in some capacity last season. Moving on to tight end. How will the 49ers fortify George Kittle? Because at tight end, Ross Dwelly no longer on the team past March if he doesn't re-sign. And Tyler Kroft also was only aboard with a 1-year deal. So under contract, the long-term deal for Kittle and Charlie Werner. Charlie Werner still on the rookie contract after he showed up in 2021. So how do the 49ers fortify Kittle? This has always been a place where I think that Kyle Shanahan has wanted to add some star power receiving wise, but it's typically really hard to do because the cost would be prohibitive. He's taken a flyer on Jordan Reed back in 2020. Reed obviously did have some star power to go with his, at least his receiving skill set. But the reason the 49ers were able to get him at a cheaper price was because he was perpetually injured. And then he ended up being injured for most of his time with the 49ers. So as you can see, it's not easy at that tight end position to fortify Kittle with star power. They did the 1-year deal for Tyler Kroft, who had a lot of catches a few years ago with the Bengals, and then he played for the Jets. But Tyler Kroft obviously was not very productive for the 49ers in the receiving game this season, although he did climb above both Werner and Dwelly on the depth chart. Now, I'll say this about the 49ers tight end position and Tyler Kroft. We'd have maybe a little bit different discussion if Trey Lance would have hit Tyler Kroft early in that game against Chicago, sailed the ball over his head. Kroft could have had the first 49ers touchdown of the season. However, that did not happen. And the 49ers are looking at Tyler Kroft as a player who came in, and his most famous play now is giving up the sack on the Hassan Reddick strip of Brock Purdy that also injured Brock Purdy. That, though, I must say, is it wasn't the worst job blocking by Tyler Kroft. He did hold Hassan Reddick for about a second on that play. The timing was just off. It wasn't the best play call, right? I mean, we've discussed the situation ad nauseum, but the 49ers are one of those teams. They're going to have their tight ends do a lot of different stuff, including some pass blocking. People, I mean, the same people that got upset with Tyler Kroft pass blocking against Philadelphia are the ones that, you know, it's funny. They were saying, hey, we want George Kittle back in pass protecting instead of Tyler Kroft. But then those same people are the ones complaining that Kittle is in pass protecting and not running a route. And they think that, you know, compromises the explosiveness of the 49ers offense, which it does, but you have to take your pick, right? You either go for the explosion or you go for the safe play. And the 49ers early in the game, I mean, I've talked about this a lot. The 49ers early in that game wanted to take a little bit of a shot downfield with play action. They didn't think that Philadelphia would have their ears pinned back against the pass. They did. They didn't respect the play fake, and the rest was history. Brock Purdy injured. The Phillies. The Eagles were better than the 49ers on that play. There's not much else you can say about it. All right, let's move on. Offensive line. O-line right here. If the season started today, the 49ers would have the left side of the line intact. Trent Williams at tackle, Aaron Banks at left guard. Nick Zakelj, though, would be the center. And I don't think that's going to happen next year because Zakelj would have to slot in for Jake Brendel, who's a pending free agent. Spencer Burford to be the right guard, same starting right guard as last season. And because the 49ers have not yet addressed the right tackle situation, the best option on the roster as we speak right now under contract for 2023 would be Jalen Moore. So obviously there's still a lot of work to be done in constructing this offensive line. Futures contracts for Leroy Watson, who is a former tight end teammate of Spencer Burford's at Texas San Antonio, was a big tight end there. The 49ers are working on converting him to tackle. He was in the practice squad this past year, so he's still a project, but they obviously at least somewhat believe in him based on re-signing for the offseason. Jason Poe, everybody knows about Jason Poe. Poe is a center project, interior line project for the future of the 49ers. And then there's Keith Ishmael, San Francisco native, who is a tackle. He's a little bit older. He's been around for a little bit longer, but also on a reserve future deal, as is Alfredo Gutierrez, who's been the International Pathway Program player for the past couple seasons for the 49ers. But they like him enough to keep him around for this offseason. But, I mean, you look at the right side right here, Zakel to Moore. A lot riding on a second-year jump for Spencer Burford at right guard. Burford this year, he got his feet wet. He alternated with Daniel Brunskill, who's also a pending free agent. And the 49ers really need Burford to take a similar jump as Aaron Banks did from year 1 to year 2. Should be even more plausible that Burford takes that jump because he played in year 1 as opposed to only 6 snaps for Aaron Banks in year 1. So we'll keep our eyes on Burford, but that's a huge one because center and right tackle are in such flux right now. You know, I should get some of my articles up on The Athletic, put this up on the screen. Let me open this up for you because I wrote about right tackle and Mike McGlinchey. I'm going to write about Jake Brendel. I talked about Jake Brendel and the center position the other day, but why don't we pop open the McGlinchey piece, get this sucker open on the screen. Here it is. Free agent Mike McGlinchey wants to stay with the 49ers, but how will it work financially? How will it work financially for the 49ers and Mike McGlinchey if he does indeed stay? Because if you look at the depth chart right here, I think you have a concerning void at right tackle that the 49ers do need to fill right now. I don't think you want Jalen Moore starting at that position. And the thing about McGlinchey, and I wrote about it in this piece, is the right tackle market is not going to be cheap. Right now you have Rob Havenstein from the Rams who made, I think it's $11.5 million on his contract per year that he signed with the Rams in September. The next guy up is Jack Conklin, and that's $15 million a year. McGlinchey and Havenstein are comparable players from an efficiency perspective at that right tackle spot. Conklin might be a grade above a McGlinchey, but there's a big gap in between that 11.5 and 15 million per year. If McGlinchey ends up commanding something like the 15 million per year, just because, you know, decent right tackles don't grow on trees, don't become available in the offseason. If another team wants to pay him that much, I have a tough time believing that the 49ers in their cap constrained situation will pay him that much. So this is where we look at other options on the depth chart for the 49ers. I don't think that they're limited to just Jalen Moore if Mike McGlinchey's not on this team. And this was last year's depth chart. Why don't we open this year's? There, you can see how different it is. You know, Colton McKivitz is not on here because he's a restricted free agent, technically not under contract for 2023. But the 49ers shouldn't have too much trouble keeping McKivitz around. And I'll update this spreadsheet when the time comes if they do indeed tender him and he does sign as a restricted free agent. But if they decide not to invest in Mike McGlinchey to man that right tackle position, I would think that an RFA tender for Colton McKivitz would be their next move, unless they go into free agency and sign a mid-tier affordable player, somebody like Billy Turner, who was available last year, played the season now, and we'll see if Billy Turner is available this offseason. It's just too early to gauge who will be and who won't be available because teams can still re-sign their guys. The 49ers, for example, can still re-sign Mike McGlinchey. But as far as players under contract for next season, 49ers only have 45 of them. There are still 45 spots to fill. McGlinchey's not there. Colton McKivitz, although he'll very likely be around next year, is not there. And it is Jalen Moore instead of either of those two guys. Now at center, same sort of deal. Jake Brendel is going to be an unrestricted free agent if the 49ers don't re-sign him by March. Now, Brendel at center is a player that we absolutely have to talk about. Everybody at this time last year, or maybe a little bit later, when Alex Mack retired, was freaking out. 49ers don't have a plan. What are they doing? Why don't they draft a center? Why don't they go in and trade or sign, trade for somebody or sign J.C. Treader, who didn't play this year? And the 49ers said, no, we believe in Jake Brendel. And the 49ers were correct in that belief. Brendel was the number 3 ranked center in pass blocking efficiency this year. He answered that component of his game. He answered a question about that component of his game. We know that he can move. One of the best blocks of the season by a 49ers offensive lineman was when Jake Brendel got 40 yards downfield and boxed Budda Baker, a much smaller safety, out of the play. That was sensational. He anchored successfully against Fletcher Cox last Sunday against Philadelphia. To me, I think that Jake Brendel is a priority free agent re-sign for the 49ers because center is so important in Kyle Shanahan's offense, and Brendel did such a good job last season. But if Bobby Slowick, the 49ers pass game coordinator, gets the offensive coordinator job in Houston, be careful. The Texans are going to want Jake Brendel too. I think they're going to want Brendel too in that scenario because center is such an important communication piece of the Shanahan offense. And if Bobby Slowick takes the Shanahan offense with him to Houston, you're going to want to make sure that communication pipeline is shored up at the center position. Center in Shanahan's system is not only adjusting blocking alignments for the 49ers up front and pointing out responsibilities there, he's also identifying safety rotations further down the field so that the 49ers can run the proper play and angle the proper play. There is a ton on the plate of the center in this scheme cerebrally. There is a ton on the plate of the center in this scheme physically because the center also has to be able to move to reach difficult blocks that I think most centers in this game are not athletic enough to reach. On top of that, he also has to be able to anchor against somebody like Fletcher Cox or even Aaron Donald or a good defensive tackle whenever they decide to take on the center. So it's an extremely challenging position to play, and the center has to be able to lock that all down. And I think that the 49ers aren't just going to go willy-nilly to a second-year man in Nick Zakel or a second-year man like Jason Poe at center. I think it is very, very important that they maintain continuity there. They were able to find the right guy to succeed Alex Mack last year, and Jake Brendel played, again, number 3 pass blocking efficiency. Awesome. Corey Linsley was number 1. He's considered the best center in football. So you have to tip your cap to what Jake Brendel did for the 49ers this past season. All right, let's move over to the defensive side of the ball. Look at this. Replenishment's needed. I can go to last season's D-line. Look at this. Full room, right? If I highlight last season's D-line. Well, if we now move over to this season's D-line, that's a lot emptier. You have Bosa. You have Armstead. You have Kinlaw, obviously, big question mark for Javon Kinlaw. And you have Drake Jackson, who I wrote about this week. Maybe we should get that up on the screen since it seems to be that I wrote about a lot of these guys this week. Let's go here. Let's find the Drake Jackson article up on The Athletic. Ooh, there's the big wasn't in the cards 49ers quarterback position article. While we're here, why don't you go ahead and check this out? This is the snake bitten at quarterback. 49ers can't stay healthy at the NFL's most important position. I mean, we went deep into this. Look, they're advertising cowboy boots to me. The thing is, the advertisements don't make much sense. I already bought some Tecovas cowboy boots. So they look a little bit like these ones. You guys have seen them on some of their videos. But let's go back here and let's take a look at Drake Jackson. The 49ers need a second-year jump from Drake Jackson in 2023. Very, very important that this happens because we're going to take another look at that defensive line depth chart, but they're losing Charles Omenihu to free agency, or I don't know if they're going to lose him, but his contract is going to expire. Jordan Willis, his contract is going to expire. Kamoko Touré's contract is going to expire. Sensum Ebukam's contract is going to expire. All of these guys, that have provided the bookending piece to Nick Bosa along that defensive line, those guys are all leaving or the 49ers need to re-sign them. on a limited cap situation. And in this piece on Drake Jackson, I illustrated the 49ers defensive line pressure and sack rates over the years. And take a look at this. Sack rate 9%, number 2. Pressure rate 38.8%, number 8 in 2019. You could tell the year without Bosa, it goes below average really quickly in 2020. That's when he tore his ACL in week 2. They got better in 2021, especially in the second half. They roared to life. They might have been the league's best pass rush late in the season. That was while Arden Key took off. But 2022 saw true regression. Number 16 in sack rate, number 13 in pressure rate. I mean, it was a mediocre pass rush, even with the NFL's leading sack getter in Nick Bosa. So the 49ers need to replenish this. Absolutely mandatory that this develop some depth, because you're counting a lot on Jackson. I wrote about him in that piece. Bosa, 18.5 sacks this year. Armstead, one of the better linemen in football. Kinlaw, not good. Still a big question mark at best. And that's questions about his availability. We haven't even gotten to the level of play. Washed out of a few plays there in the NFC Championship game. So beyond those guys, you're relying on a career practice squatter so far, and Alex Barrett, who probably is destined back to a spot like that next season, and Kalia Davis, who has yet to play a snap in the NFL. He was a rookie this year recovering from an ACL injury. They think he might be the next DJ Jones, but he has to prove it first. So bookending depth for Nick Bosa is the key of the 49ers offensive line. That's what you need. You need to replenish this room outside of Bosa, because the goal for the 49ers O-line should absolutely be D-line should be to return to 2019 levels. And you can see how good they were that season. All right, let's go back to the depth chart. Linebackers, best in the league. Warner, we're on the wrong depth. There we go. Warner, Greenlaw, no Alshire anymore. He is seeing his contract expire in March. So right now I've slotted Oren Burks in there. They re-signed Curtis Robinson to a reserve future deal. But, Curtis Robinson, more of a special teams player. Between Warner and Greenlaw, you're the best in the league. It would be nice if the 49ers could re-add Alshire, but I think he's priced himself out. The 49ers are running a good rookie deal thing there with him. But linebacker gets a little bit worse, but you still have the two best guys in the league, the best tandem with Fred Warner and Dre Greenlaw. All right, let's take a look at the secondary. Questions at safety and nickelback. Highlight all of this for you. Charvarius Ward, Deommodore Lenoir. You like how they finished against Philadelphia. This guy right here, AJ Parker, that's a reserve future deal that they signed. Ambry Thomas, they're hoping that he went through a sophomore slump this season physically, because that wasn't good. Didn't see him in any meaningful time. The 49ers, when I talk about a nickelback question, no more Jimmy Ward if they don't re-sign him. So right now I have Samuel Womack III slotted in there with Quantrez Knight behind him. Both of those guys were rookies this season. And then at safety, Talanoa Hufanga, obviously a Pro Bowler, All-Pro. But the other spot, will Tashawn Gibson return or will he retire? That's a massive question. He's 32 years old, 33 next season. So for now, we got special teams All-Pro George Odom slotted in at the safety position. So still a lot to be adjudicated for the 49ers moving forward. They also must replenish their specialists, because as you can see here, only Mitch Wishnowsky's under contract. No Tabor Pepper, no Robbie Gould. Robbie Gould, NFL record, 29 out of 29 on field goals in the playoffs. So that is the 49ers roster. Hopefully you enjoyed it. That's the roster and the depth chart. They've got 45 signed right now. So as time goes by, they've got to fill up the rest of this. They could fill it up with 90, and only the top 51 will count against the salary cap in the offseason. As it stands right now, the 49ers have about $12 million in salary cap to work with. I have that spreadsheet ready. You could check on my Twitter. I'll share it with YouTube when we do our 49ers salary cap breakdown on here. All right, cool. So that's the first look at the 49ers 2023 depth chart. Thank you for joining. Offseason coverage is going to be like this. We're going to get really in depth. That was just the first cursory look. We're going to delve deeper into this as time goes by. So most in-depth 49ers coverage for you right here. Make sure to like, make sure to subscribe, and we will talk to you all very soon. Take care, guys.